The American auto industry was rocked today by stunning news. General Motors, a titan of manufacturing, announced a major shutdown of production. This move is directly linked to new tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. For thousands of families, this announcement turns economic theory into a harsh reality. The future of their jobs is now uncertain, hanging in the balance of a high-stakes trade dispute. The tariffs, intended to protect American interests, have instead sparked a crisis. General Motors has been forced to make a difficult choice, one that will have consequences far beyond its factory gates. The shutdown is a dramatic response to rising costs and supply chain disruptions. Other car companies are watching closely, wondering if they will be next. The tariffs have introduced a level of unpredictability that businesses deeply dislike. Are these policies achieving their intended goals, or are they causing unintended harm to the very industries and workers they were meant to help? As we dig deeper into this story, we'll explore the many layers of this issue. We'll examine the real-world impact on jobs, both those lost and those created. The GM shutdown is a pivotal moment, a clear sign that the ground is shifting beneath one of America's most important industries. To understand the crisis at General Motors, we first need to understand what a tariff is. A tariff is simply a tax placed on goods imported from another country. The Trump administration has imposed a significant 25% tariff on cars and auto parts brought into the United States. The goal: make American-made products more competitive. The timing of these tariffs is tied to a broader political strategy, using trade measures as leverage for non-economic goals. This marks a significant shift in how trade policy is used, introducing unpredictability into global relations. The policy specifically targets major trading partners like Mexico, Canada, and China, countries deeply integrated into the North American auto industry. For decades, car companies have built complex supply chains that span these borders. The new tariffs disrupt this entire system, creating chaos and uncertainty for companies that rely on stability and predictable costs. The administration believes these taxes will rebalance the scales and create more American jobs. However, as the GM shutdown shows, the immediate effects can be painful and complex. The policy is a high-stakes gamble, and the auto industry is now on the front lines. The outcome of this economic experiment remains to be seen. The reaction from the auto industry to the new tariffs was swift and overwhelmingly negative. Leaders from major car companies warned these taxes would harm the economy, disrupt supply chains, and lead to job losses. The Detroit Regional Chamber called the policy a grave mistake. Labor unions, including the United Auto Workers, also spoke out, saying this was not the right way to achieve fair trade. The UAW criticized the administration for using auto workers as pawns in a larger political game. This rare alignment between corporate executives and union leaders highlights the severity of the situation. Both sides see the tariffs as a direct threat to the health and stability of the American auto industry. They argue that cooperation and negotiation are far more effective than unilateral tariffs. Imposing a 25% tax at the border is like building a dam in the middle of a river. It disrupts the natural flow and creates immense pressure. The GM shutdown is the first major crack to appear, and many fear more will follow if the policy isn't changed. The abstract threat of tariffs became a concrete reality with General Motors' announcement. GM is shutting down production at several key plants that rely on parts imported from Mexico, a direct consequence of the new tariff. The company says it's financially impossible to continue operations at these facilities with such a massive cost increase. The shutdowns will result in massive layoffs, affecting thousands of workers and their families. Plants in Ohio and Michigan, core centers of American manufacturing, are among those being idled. The layoffs will have a devastating ripple effect, impacting local businesses and the overall economic health of these regions. GM's CEO Mary Barra described the decision as painful but necessary for the company's long-term health. For the workers losing their jobs, these corporate strategies offer little comfort. The sight of a giant like GM closing plants and laying off workers because of a U.S. government policy is unprecedented in modern times. Instead of strengthening domestic manufacturing, the immediate result is shuttered factories and unemployed Americans. The GM story is a cautionary tale about the real-world consequences of protectionist trade policies. The path to economic prosperity is often more complicated than it seems. General Motors is not alone in feeling the pressure from the new tariffs. Every major automaker with operations in North America is scrambling to adjust. Companies like Ford, Stellantis, Toyota, and Volkswagen are all deeply affected. The tariffs have thrown decades-old supply chains into disarray, forcing tough decisions about future operations. Stellantis has announced plans to close facilities in Canada and Mexico, citing the new trade policies as a key factor. These closures will result in significant job losses in those countries. Ford has warned the tariffs could wipe out its profits and lead to widespread job cuts. Foreign automakers like Honda and Mazda are putting new investments on hold due to the uncertainty. Automakers feel punished for building efficient, globalized businesses encouraged by previous trade policies. The ripple effect is spreading, forcing every company to rethink its strategy for survival. The impact of the auto tariffs on jobs is complex and contradictory. On one hand, the policy is leading to devastating job losses. GM and Stellantis plant closures mean thousands of skilled workers face unemployment. The promise of protecting American jobs feels hollow to those now receiving pink slips. However, some automakers are shifting production to the United States to avoid the tariff. GM is moving some truck production from Mexico to Indiana, creating up to 250 new jobs. Nissan has reversed a decision to cut a shift at its Tennessee plant, preserving jobs. This creates a tale of two workforces. Some Americans lose jobs, while others gain as companies relocate production. The tariffs are reshuffling the deck, creating winners and losers in different parts of the country. For Fort Wayne, Indiana, it's a boost. For towns in Ohio and Michigan, it's a blow. The long-term net effect on American employment remains uncertain. The tariffs are causing a massive disruption in the labor market, forcing a rapid and often painful transition. The policy is not a simple switch. It's a complex force, destroying some livelihoods while creating others. Ultimately, the costs associated with these tariffs will find their way to the showroom floor. When it becomes more expensive for companies to build and import cars, consumers will have to pay more. Analysts warn the 25% tariff could add thousands to the price of a new vehicle, even for American-made cars that rely on imported parts. Automakers worry higher prices will scare away customers and lead to a drop in sales. Stellantis and Ford have launched aggressive discount programs to offset the inflationary pressure and keep customers coming. These discounts save buyers money but come at a cost to automakers. If tariffs remain, companies will eventually have to raise prices, forcing consumers to bear the brunt. For families looking to buy a new car, this creates a confusing and difficult situation. The vehicle they want may become more expensive, or it may be offered with a steep discount. The tariffs have turned the car market into a volatile and unpredictable place. While some buyers might snag a deal now, the long-term trend points toward higher prices and fewer choices. In the face of this new reality, automakers are in full crisis management mode. Their immediate focus damage control and rapid adaptation. Shifting production lines like GM moving truck assembly to Indiana is a quick move to dodge the immediate impact of tariffs. Companies are using overtime shifts and temporary workers to ramp up U.S. production without building new facilities. Temporary shutdowns at some plants allow for retooling or adjusting to supply chain disruptions. On the sales front, aggressive discount programs are designed to keep sales volume up and prevent unsold inventory. By sacrificing profit margin now, companies hope to maintain their connection with customers. These are defensive strategies aimed at weathering the initial storm. The industry's resilience and ability to adapt are being put to the test. These are not long-term solutions, but emergency measures to keep the ship afloat. The question is, how long they can sustain these efforts before more permanent and potentially more painful adjustments are required. Looking beyond the immediate crisis, the long-term outlook for the American auto industry is shrouded in uncertainty. The tariffs have fundamentally altered the rules of the game, and it's unclear if the old way of doing business will ever return. Automakers are now forced to reevaluate decades of strategic planning. The efficient, cross-border supply chains that were once a source of strength have now become a major vulnerability. The future will largely depend on the duration and scope of these tariffs. If they remain in place for years, we could see a permanent restructuring of the North American auto industry. Higher production costs could make American-made cars more expensive than foreign rivals, hurting exports. For workers, The future is equally precarious. Instability is a major threat. The cycle of plant closures and relocations creates a constant state of anxiety for employees and their communities. The workforce of the future will need to be more adaptable, but the transition will be difficult for many. The tariffs have set off a chain reaction with consequences that will be felt for years to come. The great American auto industry is at a crossroads, and the path it takes from here will shape the future of American manufacturing for a generation.